Good morning to anybody that's out there. I'm a little early. I just thought, what the hell? I just go ahead. I just go ahead and start, or not start, but turn on and sit here. See if anybody shows up. Might blink there a little bit. I just reset some things. Oh, looks a lot better, I believe. That part. Don't tell anybody. Better. Nobody here but me. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows or cares. Really need to learn the words of that someday. Not that I've not that I've been set upon so and such in my life that I need to be singing that kind of blues. And there is Chuck McNeil. Good morning, Chuck. Well, dog wrangling's an honest profession. I give kudos to her. How are you this morning, sir? Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows or cares. Uh-oh, you retracted a message. Actually, I saw it. I think maybe you didn't get it all in there or something. And I turned my sound off to avoid the echo, so I don't know if I'm doing good. Well, that's excellent. I've done better. Uh-oh, let me see there. That sounded like Bill for short. Well, apparently the weather forecast in Opal, Wyoming is maybe stormy. Mark might be having a little bit of trouble with his internet. He said he'd be here as soon as he could. Oh, Chuck, I got a mess behind me, buddy. I've been working on it. Over here, you can't see it probably, but I got a couch over here. I've been redoing the bottom of it because the legs pull through. I don't know. Hey, Maple Bacon. Good morning there, Mr. Mike. So I'm reinforcing it with some plywood and screwing on some new legs. Well, I appreciate that, Chuck. I talked to his wife last night. I'll talk about that. I'll do all that in a minute, but I appreciate it. Thank you. He'll be missed, at least by some of us that cared. He'll be missed by plenty, I'm sure. That's not fair. And we're going to do the regular show today, but I wanted to start out and talk a little bit about my old buddy and say why I didn't go down. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm trying to reinforce the bottom, so I put the legs back on it and set my big butt down on it without the leg pulling out. I put new legs on it because the old ones were so short that if I sat down on it, I couldn't get my legs don't work that well down low, and I couldn't get back up to get on it. So I had to put some longer legs, which I believe are going to be perfect. Well, I've sat on it once, and it's going to be good. But the wood underneath that they were screwed into, I guess over time, one of them was already busted, and the other one broke out. That's what happened. When I put it back on, it didn't break off when I sat on it, just to clear that up. But it broke off or popped loose when I tried to roll it over by myself, and the legs got bound up beneath, and then the leverage worked against me. And but I'm reinforcing it. I went and bought me some good plywood, and I'm going to cover it up. I'll either recover that with material or I'll paint it or something. But I figure on the bottom it's not going to matter. It's my couch, so I don't know if it matters anyway. On the couch, you should put motorized wheels and have it. That's a good idea. That's a real good idea, Mike. I wish I'd thought of that. I'd have bought just big casters. You know what? I might have to think about that. I had some big casters on it with locking wheels, and I could roll it where I wanted to, lock it down. Damn, that is a good idea, Mike. I wish I'd talked to you about this before I did that. I might have to look into buying some bigger wheels. I would say I probably couldn't get it licensed in this state, but around here, I see a lot of things on the road that I'm pretty sure aren't tagged. So I could probably get away with that. I'd have to put it together with a steering device or something so that I could, lay back and relax. I don't want to be working to have to drive through. Somebody used to have, and this is a true story, you can probably find it if you look up Daytona Bike Week, but years back, and maybe still, because I hadn't been there in a while, there was a guy that had built, I'm not going to call it a motorcycle, but he had built a motorized vehicle, and it was a giant recliner. So he could set up in that recliner and lean back and drive down the street. Now, what he used it for, as far as I could tell, was parades and showing off and things like that. Because at Bike Week, there's an area of Main Street. It's real short. Main Street in Daytona Beach just goes from the ocean to the intercoastal waterway. So it's not but 3 or 4 blocks long. And but they block it off. I guess they don't really block it off, but it's mainly just motorcycles that drive back and forth, showing off, if you will. Just being seen, seeing and being seen. That's just one of the things you do. And they drive that thing up and down Main Street. I saw some strange things down there. That might have been one of the neatest ones. Memorize handset controls. Well, that'd work, yeah. Yeah. I could put a kind of like a hidden wheel. Well, I could do it with a thumb wheel, couldn't I? Like James Bond. Remember the James Bond movie? I believe it's The World Is. Maybe it's Tomorrow. No, what is it? I started to say it's The World Is Not Enough, but I think it was maybe the one before that. Pierce Brosnan, anyway. And Q gave him his new car, and of course, he was always destroying his cars. But he had the phone. His phone was the remote control, and he could sit there and drive it. So he got in the back seat and was driving it through this parking garage, fighting off the bad guys. And he could, shoot his missiles from back there. He could steer it. He could, accelerate and brake and shoot rockets and all that stuff right there from a hand control. Mike, that's what I need. Good morning, Dave. Dave's here now. We can get going. I was worried about that part, so now that Dave's here, Space Mountain Dave Control. And thank you, Mike. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit before we get started into the show. That is, if Mark can make it in. The rest of this show is to finish up his trip, and if he's not here, we may not do that. I might just wait until he can get on. But I just got a note from him. He said he's trying to make it, but he's not sure about his internet connection. He has iffy connections out there in the boondocks. And when it's stormy, he can't always get on. So cross your fingers that he makes it. I'd like to because I need, I think that'd be a more fun thing to talk about today than just talking about my buddy Vernon. Hey Vern, that's what people would call him, especially, I don't know if you guys know the Hey Vern commercials down here, but what was that guy's name? He was in, what's a goofy guy? He was in 2 or 3 movies. One of them was about Christmas. One of them was about camp. He went to camp. Ernest, was it Ernest Goes to Camp? Maybe. The guy that played that part anyway, when he first, he did a lot of Hey Vern stuff. Jim Varney. What was his name in the movie, Chuck? Or not? Well, maybe he did just go with that. I was thinking he did something else. Roller coaster ride this week in the politics. Oh yeah, it's been an interesting week, Michael. We'll have to talk about that later. Ernest, that's right. So Ernest goes to camp, and Ernest does Christmas, and I don't know, Ernest maybe went to jail. But that guy was from the Nashville area somewhere, and that's where he started doing, I think, he started doing commercials down there, I believe, for one of the ice cream brands, Purity Ice Cream or something down there around Nashville, or Milk Company, and they picked him up from there and started Ernest in the Army. Okay. And, he'd be sitting there and say something really silly about milk or ice cream. Hey, Vern. And next thing you know, he's in the movies. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. I don't know. He's been gone for a while. After his last movie, I don't know that he lived that long. Seems like he had cancer, maybe. I guess he was one of us. I don't know if he really was or not. For all I know, he might have been from New York City or the Bronx or something, or New Jersey, and he just hid that accent. Drip, drip, drip. Mess. My lid in my coffee's been sweating, and now when I opened the lid, it ran everywhere. That's been my story today, one mess after another. Which takes me back to the couch, Chuck. I'm sure maybe you haven't, but most people probably can relate. Like I said, I've been working on it. Hang on a minute. Let me grab something and I'll show you so I can have a little visual aid here. Excuse the view. Damn it. So anyway, this is what I put on. And I took this off so you can see the difference in height. I mean, it's significant. This one had big screw-in legs and a much bigger bolt than the ones I bought to replace it. So I had to also put these little nut inserts, threaded inserts, to screw these into. He's born in Lexington, Kentucky. Well, that's close. So anyway, so I got the one that broke off, or pulled out, got it loose. Like never got this off of it. I had it on there good and tight, and that's a German expression, good and tight. And then as I was laying in my plywood, I put that whole piece in, got it nailed down. I thought I was pretty proud of it. And I looked down and I saw, the other legs laying there, and I looked at my couch on the end I hadn't covered yet with plywood, and I realized that I had not taken these off. So I unscrewed these where I put them in originally, dropped them out, and then got to looking, and I couldn't find the third one, or the fourth one, however you want to look at it. It was on the plywood. I put the whole sheet of plywood on, fitted it up there all by myself, held it by myself, and I'll be danged if I didn't forget this. So I had to take it all back off this morning. So that's what I've been doing this morning. But by afternoon, I'm going to be lounging on that couch. It kills me. Hope it won't do that. Good morning, Miss Kay. Welcome in. I'm kind of hanging loose here for a minute. I was sort of hoping Mark might be able to make it, and maybe a couple other folk. And since I'm doing that, I think I'm going to put this screen up while I'm talking, and I will explain it better in a moment. But for now, I'm just going to share it and put it up there. So there. Just in time to have an afternoon nap. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, Mike. Now, I haven't been able to take a good nap on it for a while because I've had it semi-torn apart while I was trying to fix it, then fix it again, and now fix it hopefully for the last time. And be done with that part, and then I can enjoy it for a while. Unless I do what you said, Mike, and I put some wheels on it. Now, I might have to back up and rethink that, because if I find some wheels that would screw on to the inserts I'm putting on today, that might happen. And that would be a hell of a good idea. Then I could move it around in here. It wouldn't be, not just because I'm lazy or want to drive it to the take it to the drive-through, but because I'd like to be able to maybe move it when I need to. I have enough trouble moving stuff. Good morning, Tina. Tina McNeil has joined us, folks. Oh, you better go find that coffee. And I'm glad the dogs are untangled and you're not just laying out there in the mud or the dirt. I don't know if my wife is going to be here. She was supposed to be. She was also, I thought, going to bring Teddy out today so he could say hi to everybody. Let me see if she realizes. She might have laid back down. Let me give her a quick call. Entertain yourselves for a moment. Well, she did forget. Let me see here. What's going on? Mabel Bacon. Sorry, don't mean to steer you away from your topic, but did you happen to see the photos? Yes, I. You know what, Mike? I did not. I've been having problems with Instagram, so I haven't seen everything. However, and I'm wondering if it was the same airplane, but they had a Lancaster at Oshkosh, and I think our buddy Chris posted some pictures on his. I don't know if it was on Instagram or if it was on Facebook, but anyway, I think he posted a couple pictures of it. And hey Dean, welcome in, buddy. Oh, sorry you can't hang around. You got to work this morning. And anyway, they flew it into Oshkosh, so I got to see it fly on video. So that was really cool. That's a neat airplane. I've got Instagram working on my, well, it's working on my phone, but I've been screwing with it on my computer mostly, and that's what's had me sidetracked there. I was able to open Microsoft window with whatever their browser is, Bing or whatever, and I finally got it to work. I had to go in and unlock some things that apparently I had set that were keeping it from coming on. So I must have the same thing done on Google, which is Chrome is what I usually use for browser these days. So I got to see some pictures, but I'll go look at them after we get through. I'll write that down right now, Mike. Cool airplane, not something you see very often. I mean, you don't see any of those airplanes very often. Some you see more than others. It's not terribly uncommon to see a Mustang, around once in a while down here, or one of the Navy birds or something like that. But it is unusual. It's very unusual to see something like a Lancaster or a Spitfire or a Hurricane, whatever you call it. And there were 2 or 3 of those up there this week because they did a special every day as the air show started up there. They would do a theme. Like one day is the beginning of the air show was all about old vintage planes. They did one about warplanes, and they did one that was just all jets. In fact, the whole air show may have been about jets. The jet one, I got to go back and see because I was working on something that day. And they had a lot of MiGs and stuff. I've actually worked on a MiG once, a small one that flew into our airport, one that somebody had imported and got working civilian. Good morning, Michelle. Good to see you. Oh, you're on Colorado time. Well, that puts you just a little tiny bit closer to us then. You're not quite so far away. I'm thinking, okay, let me back up here and read what Maple Bacon said. There's only two of those Lancasters that are flying. Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. A sad thing about that sad to me, sad to anybody that loves airplanes, but after the war, when it ended, just about all of the victorious countries destroyed a lot of their aircraft, and I guess to trim down the size of their air forces and save money. They didn't figure they needed them anymore at that time. And they destroyed Corsairs and Lancasters, I bet, and B-17s and B-29. So that's one reason why there's so few of them out there flying today. And then Maple Bacon said, I'm thinking one in Canada and one in the U.S., but I'm not too sure. Something to look up. Yeah. And Jamarski is the one that was in Winnipeg last week. Oh, okay. That's the name of the plane, the nose plane or whatever. Good morning, Miss Diana. Miss Diana has wrangled Walter, and she's in the club now. I don't know if that's true, but Tina was out wrangling her hounds a little while ago. Dean, how are you feeling, buddy? If you've got a minute, how are you feeling since you had your surgery? Hopefully that went okay and you got healed up. If anybody's interested in airplanes, there's still a couple of days of Oshkosh left. If you just go to the EAA's website, they've got a lot of live cameras every day, and there'll be an air show today starting probably mid-afternoon. But right now they have 24/7 live cameras in all different parts of the airfield. They got one that just shows warbirds activity, and one that shows vintage aircraft activity, and one that shows ultralights, and one that shows float planes. And who knows, you may see Miss Sarah on there. She's been having a big old time up here this week. They posted quite a few pictures and popped up on my phone. You're recovering okay. I'm not sure if that sounds positive or not. Mike Bacon says we also have a big air show going on this week. Oh, do you? The Lancaster's there. It flew over our work while we were doing a fire alarm drill. So loud. I love the sound of those engines, those big V12s, but I've only ever heard them in Mustangs or a Spitfire. Maybe a P-38 Lightning, those kind of things. I've never heard four of them together on one airplane. I think that would be amazing. Amazing. I shouldn't say that so much. She's in a house with 6 young kids, so all the kids are up. Hopefully they're still in bed and you have time for a cup of coffee or something. There were a few of those big birds that got turned into water bombers, for fire and stuff. And I don't know how many of those are left. Some of those early fire retardants were pretty corrosive to the aluminum in airplanes. So a lot of them got eaten up with that, over time, and then they got scrapped. But they scrapped those airplanes after the war and then reused a lot of the materials like the aluminum. They turned that aluminum into scrap and then melted it back down, I guess, and built new airplanes. Oh, yeah, Michelle, if you're making breakfast, I think we'll be right over. Oh, you got up at 5 a.m. Oh, good for them. Mark gets on with us about every morning, and he's getting up at mountain time too. And is Sarah at the yeah? Well, she has been at the she's been everywhere, but no, she's mostly been at the Cirrus exhibit or tent or whatever they've got there, Kate, because she works for them or is working for them this week. She's actually got I don't know if it's a temporary job or an internship or what, but she's been working with them since last year. And she's wanting to go into marketing and that sort of thing if she doesn't turn flying into a full-time job, which some of her friends are already working on. So she's been, there, but I haven't been able to find many pictures of their whole exhibit. And so I'm thinking if she's there, she's probably, hey, Blue Nose, welcome in, Chris. Good morning. Are you still at Oshkosh? We've just been talking about it. My grandniece is making homemade cinnamon rolls. It's birthday in the house today. Is this your birthday? Because I can't remember when your birthday is. Sorry, I'm going to keep checking in case Mark sends me something. Yeah, good for you, Chris. Man, I tell you what, maybe you can come on the show one week here soon, and we'll talk all about your exploits at or adventures at Air Venture. Oh yeah, I missed getting to see the snowbirds too. I was unfortunately, where was I when they flew? I was probably working on my computer. I was doing something. I'm hoping I can get to see it on the replays. I've seen a few things on their website already, or on either their website or YouTube, where they're running some of the shows, after the fact. I did watch, they have something called the Theater in the Woods, where they have seats and a tent, I guess. I don't know exactly the setting, but other than what I see, big stage and displays and audio video equipment, and they do people get in there and tell stories and do lectures and things. And I have got to see a couple of those on repeat or replay. So Tina, I've been in team what do you call that? Is it team replay? Which video? I may have missed that. Did I see that, Chris? Like I said, I've been working on Instagram this week, so if it's on there, I might have missed it. Team replay. So I've been doing that for the EAA this week when I miss things. They've been doing, and I don't want to spoil all the, in case we do tell stories about it later, but they've been doing a night show, a twilight show, they call it. Some amazing acrobatics at night with big planes and with drones and I guess ultralights and things like that. And then they've also been doing, then they have the afternoon show, air show every day. And last night I got to see them do some really cool stuff with STOL airplanes, which is STOL. And that stands for short takeoff and landing. And that's the kind of planes they use in the bush, in Canada and Alaska and those kinds of places. Diana says the two flight-worthy Lancasters are in Canada and the UK. The one in Canada was named after Andrew Mynarski. Am I saying that right? And the Victoria Cross, Mike. And the Victoria Cross. So what is the actual name then? Diana, do you know? I wonder why. I really want to see the snowbirds, and I hope I will get to see them hopefully today or later. I really wanted to watch that part of the show and I missed it. But like I said, I also missed the show where they did mostly jets, or did all the early part, to display and talk about them. And I know there was a bunch of MiGs and stuff on it. That's what I was saying a minute ago. When I worked in Nashville, one day we had a MiG-15 or MiG-20. I'm not sure which. They both looked a lot alike. Anyway, one showed up on a ramp one day and pulled in down next to the hangar, rolled in down there, and he needed his nitrogen refilled. And those airplanes they were kind of crude and simple, a little bit like their AK-47s, simple and easy to build, and I guess you could say last a long time or work hard. If they do mess up, you just throw them away and get another one, kind of thing almost. And it was a strange system because what it did was it had a reservoir. It had a reservoir tank just for high pressure nitrogen, and that's what put the gear up and down. So every so many cycles of the gear, you had to resurface it because it was what they call a total loss system. It did its job and then dumped what nitrogen it used, and then whatever was left in the tank, for next time. It was strange. So we had to service the nitrogen. A really strange way they put things in those airplanes. And I think to me, that was one of the silliest things I'd ever heard of. But I guess it worked. We also have the CF-18 here as well. The pilot did an amazing performance. Is that the Twin Beach, Chris? Because I'm not used. I think I saw it. I think CF-18 is a military version of a Beach 18. All right. Well, some people are here. Just in case people have to leave, I'm going to go ahead and start talking a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But up there he is. Let me see what he had to say. It's Bill for short. Oh, he said it's not looking promising. Let me send him a note back. Okay, look, if he don't make it, it's not looking well. I'm gonna save his Africa stuff, and who knows if you can hang around a little bit, maybe we can talk about a little bit more about. Um, oh my God, my mind's going. Oshkosh. In fact, if you've got a few minutes, I might send you a link, and you can come in and talk to us on your phone or something if you want to. And see, it's the Canadian version of the F8. Oh, the F. Yes, okay. I think I saw that fly. I think I've seen some of their performances, but I haven't seen them all. In cases, I know it's nowhere near the same, but at work yesterday we had lots of the big helicopters flying around. Not sure what model because I don't have a window, but it was shaking the building. What were they doing, Kay? Was it National Guard stuff or any idea? I remember one time we had a bunch of I don't know all the numbers. I can't remember all the numbers on these anymore, but like seahorses and the bigger helicopters like the Navy uses a lot or used to, uh, and they still can Jolly Green Giant kind of things, bigger ones that they can haul troops in. And we were somewhere. It might have been in Nashville. We had like 4 or 5 of those things in formation fly over us, not too high in elevation. Wow, was that loud and it shook the air. It was just really impressive. Not really sure, but I work right outside the Donaldson Airport. Well, okay. There's no telling what kind of maneuvers they were on. Okay, let me get back on track a little bit, and we'll see what comes up from there. So I did change. I wasn't going to be here today. I posted that the show would not happen, and I'll be honest with you. All week I've been a bit down in the dumps about not being able to get around and do much, and his passing. And yesterday, Brenda and I got out and did a little bit of some errands, which included going to Home Depot. And I don't know if this is what did it, but it might be. Plus, I've been working on the couch and some other stuff. But I picked up and loaded through a bag of 40-pound bag of birdseed on the buggy we were pushing. I was leaning on, and I just haven't. I've been hurting like hell, pardon the expression, ever since. And Brenda and I talked about it. She was already concerned, and I didn't think I could make it down there and back without really suffering, which is selfish, I guess. But as I was already miserable, I couldn't sit in the car very long. I couldn't. I'll be honest with you. I'm sitting here right now thanks to probably a muscle relaxer and a pain pill. But I was just not going to be able to ride to Nashville and back. We were going to go down to Knoxville, which is an hour and a half, and then pick up Phil and drive 3 hours down to Nashville and hang out down there with some friends, hopefully see a few old friends, which Phil will do, and I think keep us posted, or at least me posted on who all he runs into. And then we were going to turn around and drive back, so it was going to be a long day for me in the car. And I did some long days with Mark a while back, but when I started that trip, I wasn't hurting as bad as I was when we came back. Anyway, this picture is the only picture I have of him at the moment. So I put it on. I changed out the picture for my thumbnail and my slideshow, and I put this on there. And this picture was probably taken in sometime during 1982. Phil and I were trying to figure out, we didn't have an actual time and date on the picture. He got somebody sent him a shot that they'd taken of another photograph. And that's Phil in the front. He was obviously turning his head so you can't hardly see him, but that's Vernon in the back. And Vernon Steffi. And Vernon and I worked together since the late 70s. Well, obviously not lately, but starting in the late 70s. I got my first official professional job as an aircraft mechanic in Tri-Cities Airport between Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol, just east of here, or northeast of here. And I got on for a company named Appalachian Flying Service. And Vernon was one of the guys, I'll say main guys, that worked at Appalachian and kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot of stuff about airplanes, how to get to stuff, how to rebuild stuff, how to safety wire stuff. I mean, just all the things that once you get out in the field, you go to school and you learn and you get a license, you take tests. But that my instructors at A&P school always told us that what an A&P was about was giving you permission and legalities or whatever, so that you could work on airplanes and then you could learn. Because once you got out, it's when you really learned how to do stuff. And he was absolutely right. You can come out of A&P school thinking you know everything, but when you actually get out there and start touching real world stuff, it's not the same. So anyway, Vernon and a couple of other guys there kind of took me under their wing and started teaching me and helping me work. And I guess I met their approval and their standards because I worked really hard. I mean, I always worked really hard, and I took the advice they gave me. And, I listened, and we got along well. And I worked there for, I think, 2.5 years. And about 2 years into that, Vernon and one of the other guys that worked there, who was, I guess he was just a general mechanic. He might have been our main inspector for a while. Anyway, his name was Don Poor, who unfortunately is also gone. They got called and they got offered a job in Nashville, working for a new company that was starting up down there, and to work on turboprops. Because mainly when I was in Tri-Cities, we mostly just worked on small piston airplanes or twin engine airplanes, but not a lot of turbine stuff. But the reason they got called originally was the guy that was setting up that shop had worked with them a lot on some MU2s, which is a Mitsubishi twin engine, had two Garrett Air Research turboprop engines on it. And because of that connection, he came up and hired those two guys. So they went to Nashville. And honestly, at the time, I thought Vernon would never leave Kingsport, which is where he grew up and lived, which kind of like me, I guess I never thought I'd leave either. So they went to Nashville. Well, a couple of months after they got down there and things were moving and they were hiring some other people, they called me and asked me if I'd like to come down and offer me a job and a position at this new company. So after a little bit of mulling that over, Brenda and I decided to just take the leap and go see what happened. It was a big move for us too. That was a big deal, but of course we were young and full of vinegar, and we didn't stop us. So that's how I ended up in Nashville. And we went to work. The label, the logo there on Phil's shirt says the Nashville Jet Center. And that's who I went to work for in Nashville in the beginning. Now that name changed a couple of times, but it didn't actually change hands until near the end. And so again, Vernon took me under his wing, and I worked side by side with him to learn new airplanes, to work on the airplane that's behind them in the hangar. There is a Turbo Commander. That one's old enough that it was built by Rockwell International, probably in the mid-60s, maybe 70s. And it was basically a small corporate business airplane, but not a jet. prop-driven turbine, a little bit cheaper to operate than a pure jet. And that was a pretty good old airplane. I mean, they were stout and sturdy, and they used to use them for hauling freight and stuff at night a lot for years. Checks were a big deal. Check contracts were a big deal back then, transferring checks from banks to the Federal Reserve in Washington. And there were nightly, you would not believe the number of airplanes that size and a little bigger that crisscrossed this country every night transporting checks. But anyway, that one there was passenger hauling. And I remember the color. I can't remember who owned that airplane, but I do remember the airplane. So anyway, I went to work for Vernon there, and Don Poor, who was the chief inspector down there. That's what he did. That's why they hired him. And Vernon was crew chief. We had 4 and 5 man crews that, they'd roll an airplane into the hangar after they'd done their outside runs and tests and bring it in, and we'd start opening it up to do inspections and fixing stuff and just, that kind of stuff. We'd have them in there 3 or 4 days, and if there wasn't anything major wrong with them, when we got them back together, out they'd go. And we worked a lot of overtime back then. Good God, Vernon and I worked, oh Lord, we used to work at night in the evenings till, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then a lot of days we ended up coming in at 6 in the morning and working till 6 or 7 at night. And so we worked together a lot. In fact, when I moved to Nashville and got the job down there and took myself down to start, Vernon and his wife, Winnie, put me up for a week or two. They let me stay in their house with them and their kids. In fact, one of their sons gave me his bedroom. His name was Garen. I guess I should thank him for that. I wonder if he remembers that. I think he slept on the couch that week. But anyway, so then after that, we worked together all the time in Nashville until the end. And he was a crew chief. I worked for him. I was a crew chief at later, and he worked for me. He was one of the main guys that moved with me from our main hangar up to a side hangar where we did a lot of sheet metal work, structural repairs. And towards the end of my career there, that's what we were doing. I was focusing on doing structural repairs on planes like this. Just a great guy to be around. I mean, he was just jokes. He laughed. He was funny. He told and did a lot of things I can't talk about on the internet. YouTube would probably cut me off. He's just a really good guy, and I miss him a lot. I hadn't talked to him in a while. Last time I went to Nashville, I rode my motorcycle down there. I'm getting a little teared up here. Bear with me. And I went to see him, and he had retired. I think he'd retired then. Had just retired maybe. He's a few years older than me. In fact, he's 16 years older than me. And I got to visit with them. Winnie was always really nice to me and always talked to me. In fact, she sounded just like her old self on the phone yesterday. She said he had really, she didn't really say suffered a lot the last year, but she said he couldn't hardly get out of the bedroom. He stuck in a chair, basically. Give me a minute. I'm sorry, pardon me. I didn't think I'd get that choked up today. But he was having he had some back problems, and I think she said hip problems or leg problems too. He just wasn't very mobile for the last year, and he couldn't even come to the table to eat. Most of the time he ate. She said he basically lived in the bedroom. He really couldn't get on the bed, so his kids had bought him a nice recliner of some sort, and that's what he lived in, that damn chair. And that hits home for me because I'm so close to being in that same spot. Give me a minute. I apologize. Okay. Trying to get my shit together here. Pardon me. Like I said, it just kind of hits home because I could be that. I've been that way. I don't want to be that. I'm trying not to be that way again, and it's hard. And I guarantee you, if I had called him, he would have been his old self. I can hear him. He just had this little chuckle, almost a giggle sometimes, and he was a funny guy. But anyway, so I was going down to the funeral today, and I just was in too much pain, and I probably regret that, but I feel selfish for that, not going. Phil went on down, and so I'll get some reports from him. But Brenda, I think she was already worried that I wasn't going to be able to do it, and I finally just kind of gave in and said, I'm not, I shouldn't, I don't need to go. So anyway, he was a great guy, and I miss him a lot. Got to thinking about that. I'd known him for Jiminy Christmas. 46, 7, 8 years. I can't remember exactly. So a really long time. Watched his kids grow up. Get married, have kids of their own. They may even have kids of their own by now. I know they were grandparents a couple times over, and they may have been great grandparents. I'll have to call her back and find out about that. Their daughter had triplets. She moved off, married a guy, and moved off to Arkansas. I don't remember if he was a Walmart executive, or I don't know about executive, but he wasn't a store clerk. And so they lived in Arkansas for a while near. Their headquarters weren't in Little Rock, but I think they lived in Little Rock. I think he worked for Walmart. I could be wrong about that. It's been a while. But she got pregnant, and next thing that we knew, or they knew, and then she was going to have triplets. So she's got 3 kids, and I think she had a couple more after that, maybe. I almost want to say she had gotten remarried or something. But anyway, and then his oldest son, his youngest son's name was Garen. His oldest son, I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, a few years ago when I was at TVA, I found out that he had gotten a job at TVA in Nashville. He did computer work and aerial GIS work where, they do maps and digitize them by doing aerial stuff. He didn't work in our group. He worked in the power line group. And that part of Power TV, that part of TVA, and he was involved in flying They fly power lines to inspect them, many times a year, I'm sure. Um, and they've got those guys in helicopters that get out there and fix the wires and, wear those special suits and all that crap. But he didn't do that. He just flew and digitized and computerized. Then they could use that footage to make a map, special secret map, I might add, so that they knew exactly where, every tower and what was going on. And then they could reference those videos. And I think possibly they even put up cameras that were usable for years, may still be in work. After 9/11, all this stuff it was always kind of proprietary, somewhat secretive. I mean, I always thought that was silly until 9/11, I guess. But when 9/11 happened, all this kind of thing got really important because everybody was always concerned about sabotage and terrorist attacks on our infrastructure and dams and power plants and electrical. I hate to say just lines because I'm talking about the big towers, that have multiple 500 kilowatt stuff wires and do, supply cities with power. And so his son was doing that. And then his youngest son, I believe, went into the Army, and he may have been learning to fly helicopters. But I think in the end, I don't think he stuck with it. I think he came out of the military eventually and then started doing something else. So I need to actually find out about him and see where he's at. But I always thought Vernon would come back up here. Vernon was from Kingsport, which is about 20 miles from here. He grew up not very far from where my mom grew up. And of course, he's a little younger than Mom. He went to a different high school. Went to Central High School. He's a short guy. He's shorter than me, and you can see there he's a kind of an leprechaun-looking kind of fella. But he played basketball when he was in high school, and apparently he was a really good shot. And he was still a pretty good shot. We'd play out back down the hangar sometimes, and he was still a pretty good shot. But then his wife, they lived near that. So then he married, like Brenda and I, he married Winnie, his high school sweetheart, after they got out of high school. And they lived near that high school, or the new one. She worked there for years and years when he was working at the airport. And honestly, never thought he would leave. Most of us that knew him at that time didn't think he would. We're really surprised that he left Kingsport, that area, because that's where all his family was, and he wasn't really he really wasn't the kind of just jump jobs and all that kind of stuff. But he went, and then thankfully he took me with him. And since all his kids are down in that area, he just stayed. They retired and just stayed down there. I really thought he'd come back up here once he got, retired and things calmed down, or he settled into that kind of lifestyle. But I guess most of the family up here was already passed away. And they stayed in Nashville, or near Nashville. They lived in Smyrna, which is 15 miles south of Nashville, I guess. That's where, and Brenda and I lived there too when we were down there. And so they're still down there. I guess they'll be down there. I guess she'll stay too. They were going to have a friends, come in at 1 o'clock today, East Central Time. And then at 2 o'clock, they were going to do a memorial service. He was cremated. And I asked her if they have any special plans to scatter ashes anywhere or do anything like that. I've always thought when I died, I'd hope somebody could take at least some of my ashes, spread them out in the mountains somewhere, or take a few out west and, fertilize Wyoming maybe or New Mexico with them. But she said, well, you never say anything about that. She said, that's funny. She said, in fact, till just, I don't know if it was a few years ago or a few months ago, they actually hadn't thought about cremation. And then he got to talking to somebody when he said, and the subject of dying, I guess, came up. And he said, I think cremation's the way to go. He in his mind, he just decided that was what he wanted. And so she honored that wish. And so she bought him an urn, and they He's in the urn now, and she said I'm going to set him on the mantle, and he's going to live here with me until I die. So I thought that was pretty good because I can almost hear the little. I can't say what I was going to say. I can almost hear him sitting there laughing at her in the jar in the urn because that's just how he was. Anyway, ate some fried chicken and drank a few beers with him in my lifetime, so he'll be remembered. And this whole thing, the last couple of years, losing Dad, and then I'm starting to lose friends like this, and it makes you realize, damn, I'm getting old, or we are, and it's. Well, I guess we're at that age when we go to more funerals than we do certainly parties or anything. Thanks, Mike, for reminding everybody about the thumbs up. I'm going to go back now and see if I can figure out what everybody's been talking about. I thank you guys. Appreciate your, I guess, best wishes for me and his family. The hugs. I saw something else I was going to. Let me gather myself here a little bit more. Oh, Mike's got to go out for a bit. Take Walter for a walk before it gets too warm, and won't be able to. Shouldn't be that long. So eat some fried chicken and have a beer. You know what? I may do that. That'd be a damn good idea. I can see him today. Back then, you could get away with stuff like this, and I don't mean that we weren't doing anything wrong. So don't take it that way. We weren't working, but there was a time when we worked down there. It was a really tight knit group, and the management really treated us well back then. I mean, somebody told me one time it's a real, probably Phil. He said it's like a communist paradise. He said they take care of everybody and everybody gets paid. But about every weekend or every Friday night, airplanes would leave. They'd come in on a Monday morning and leave on a Friday afternoon or something. So if there was space in the hangars, somebody'd fill up a big rolling trash can full of ice, and they'd fill that thing full of beer, and we'd all sit around outside or in the back of the hangar and have a few beers. And the boss was not terribly uncommon for him to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and bring in 3 or 4 buckets of chicken. And in fact, he had a system which I had figured out before he ever mentioned it. But guys like Vernon he wasn't confrontational. And so it was hard to get him to really talk about things if something was bothering him. So Dean Dom, the guy that ran the place then, one of the owners, he kind of figured out that if you give a guy a couple of beers and relax and have a pot of chicken, that a lot of times you could get people to talk a whole lot more and relax and tell you things. So it wasn't beyond him to lubricate people just a little bit with a couple of beers, and then get down to business. But we, of course, never worked that way. But couldn't do that anymore, I don't guess. But we did that a lot back then. And pilots would do it too. Pilots that we worked on and maintained regularly would, they might be from South Georgia or Vermont. We had a couple of customers in Vermont, Wisconsin. We had planes pretty much from all over the country for a while. Not that particular plane. Well, those two, but mainly Mitsubishi MU2s. And that was our main specialty when I first got there. We were one of their main service centers at that time. We were rated like #1 in the country for a while, or at least in the east of the Mississippi. And so we had some pretty good regular customers. And it wasn't unusual for them to go buy a couple of cases of beer. And when they would leave on Friday, take their airplanes on, they'd, give them to us and again, put them in a big trash can full of beer or something, or ice. And after work was over, sometimes if they didn't have to leave, they'd hang around and have a beer with us too, which kind of I thought made good sense. And let the mechanics get to know some of the pilots they were dealing with. And, sometimes that can be a rather rough combination. I mean, you got guys working on your airplane, and sometimes pilots can be a little smart assy and didn't always appreciate just how hard things were to do sometimes. Friction is what I was trying to come up with. But then a lot of times, in the end, they think, these guys are busting their ass and they're doing a good job. And, I'm going to do something for them. So they might bring us lunch in one day, or they'd go out and, like I said, buy some beer and bring in. Back then, drank a lot of light beer for some reason. It's like, that's what Michelob, Miller Lite. I don't even know if Bud Light existed back then. Maybe Coors. Those kind of things that you could go down and buy a case of. And what did Michelle say? Now watch it. Oh, sorry, I'm getting too potty mouth, I guess, among other things. Tina says, yes, I think that's one of the hardest things about getting old. Oh, ain't it the truth? Yeah, go through the suffering you do with aches and pains, and then then your heart aches from all the friends you're losing. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet or not in our weekly conversations, but one of our other friends, Brenda's friend from high school, it lives up this way, a little further east, let us know that they're planning a 50th anniversary, or whatever you call it, reunion for our graduating class of 1974. And so next month, and I don't know if she realizes that or not, but next month we're hoping to go to Johnson City and see how many of us are left. I know a few of us are gone. Some of my good friends are gone from accidents and other reasons. But so I think we're going to go, because like I told her, we can't, it's not going to get, that part of life's not going to get any better. And we need to go see people while we can. And which is what, also breaks my heart about Vernon. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. We didn't talk as much as we used to. And then you realize it's too late. Anyway, so that's what Vernon was about, and that's why today I've done this show kind of in his memory. I've been kind of down this week, and I realized that that this was why. At first, it bothered me, and I hated it and felt bad about it and his family, because I always was very fond of his wife and kids. But then later in the week, I realized I wasn't feeling all that great, so Mark called me, and we talked for a couple of hours, which he rarely ever gets on the phone, talks more than a couple of minutes. And then I needed a little pick-me-up. I think that was Wednesday or Thursday. And at that time, I wasn't going to do the show. In fact, he even offered to try to do it for me, in which he's never done anything like this. He said, I don't know if I can do it. He said, but if you want me to, I will. So I love him like a brother. I just don't know what I'd do without him. But anyway, which means I've got to see him more while we can too. And I was headed somewhere with that. He and I both were talking about old friends and high school friends. And he's been hunting some people he went to school with and hasn't talked to or seen virtually since then. There's one of his really good buddies in high school that he squirrel hunted with all the time, which is something Mark did. That was a passion of his. Fishing and hunting squirrels were two of his favorite things in the whole wide world. And this one guy I guess his family had some property down not too far from here, actually. and they go down there and fish in the river and Lick Creek and Nolichucky and sometimes Cherokee Lake. And he told me this week he'd been trying to find him. He realized that they hadn't actually seen each other since they were 19 years old. And truth is, there was a lot of people I went to high school with I've not seen since I was the day we graduated. So when you're young like that, I'm sorry guys, my voice is crap right now. Get cleared up here in a minute. When you're 18, bulletproof and going to live forever, immortal, is like Jimmy Buffett said one time. You think you're going to live forever. That kind of stuff doesn't seem so important. But then when you reach this point in your life, and don't get me wrong here, I'm not giving up. I hope I've got another 20 years in me at least. And put me about even with Vern. Then you start thinking about it. So, I don't know how many of you guys have had thought about this or had similar situations, but I really wish I had more pictures of him. Of course, when I worked there, it was the age of celluloid and glossy paper. And somewhere in my files, I'm sure boxes of photographs, I have pictures of him. And I'm still wanting to dig some of them up. And if I do, I'll probably post them one day. If I can find any and then, get them scanned into the computer. This is the only one we had. Phil couldn't find any either, at least not on short notice. And I don't know, we had some good times. We had some hard times. I spent many a night with him laying up under an instrument panel. One of us on the outside, one of us on the inside, changing out windshields in some of our airplanes. The Mitsubishi, in fact, was it's just a hard, rough job to change the windshields in the old ones. And you had to practically take the whole front of the airplane part inside. And you had to get up there and lay under the windshield. And back then, as I've told Brenda many times, to be a good airplane mechanic, you got to have eyeballs in your fingertips because you can't see. Otherwise, you can't get up and look at these things. So you have to reach up in there and feel. And we'd have to reach up under the frame up there, and the guy on the outside would turn the screw slowly and stick it to your finger. And I'll explain why I stick it in a minute. And you'd have to reach up there and find the screw and fill the screw and let it get threaded in. Once you got it threaded, we made special wrenches that would get up in there that were bent certain ways and made a certain way, and we'd make them ourselves. I've still got a bunch of them in my toolbox. And, you get that up there and fishing around till you got on the nut, and then you could torque it down and move on to the next one. But sometimes that might take you 30 minutes just to do a screw. And on top of that, these were pressurized airplanes, so you had to seal everything, every screw, every rivet, everything that was in the pressure vessel of the airplane had to be sealed. So we had to put these things in wet with this epoxy sealant that, when it dries, it's rubbery, it's not hard. And but when you're putting one together, you get that stuff in your hair, you get it all over your hands. It takes days to get it all off. Probably not the right thing to do. We know now, but the only thing that would take it off, even when it was still not set up, was methyl ethyl ketone, which is pretty hard, which is a kind of a rough, what's the word? Something that dissolves things. That was the only thing that would cut it. And so we'd be up to our elbows in buckets of methyl ethyl ketone, MEK. And I've often wondered if, what that did to all of us, because I know it couldn't have been good. And just the vapors off of it when you were doing that, it would absolutely knock your head off just about. Solvent. Thank you, Tina. And I don't know what I'd do without you guys. You have to fill in and give me the words. So thanks a lot. But we'd be in that stuff and, trying to clean it. Oh, and it still wouldn't get it all, but that's the only thing that would cut it. Fingernail polish remover is mostly it's a much milder solvent. Back then, we thought it was safest around, or was really safe. I don't know if they think that anymore. The name will pop in my head here in a minute. Acetone. Thank you, Tina. Tina, I need to pay you today. I don't know what I'd do without you. So we'd use acetone, which smelled a lot better. In pure form, it's kind of sweet smelling. But it wouldn't cut this stuff off. It'd cut a lot of things, but it would not cut. It wouldn't cut this sealant once it started drying it off. So, had my hands in that a lot. And then another one we used was toluene or toluol, which since then I've heard mentioned many, many times as something really terrible that you don't want to mess with and don't want in the environment and that kind of stuff. So, I've handled a lot of bad shit, stuff in my life. So hopefully it don't all come back to haunt me. It ain't got me yet, so maybe it won't. I got MEK one time. Guy squirted me accidentally, but he squirted me right in the face and got it in my eye with methyl ethyl ketone, which it's almost like instantly gets into your system. And I think I've told you guys this, but Kelly, our youngest daughter, was born with a birth defect. Her left eye didn't completely develop. So she has an eyeball she can't see. It's not as big as the one on the right. Anyway, that was the same eye I got MEK in. And for the longest time, I thought, oh, God, I hope this didn't somehow affect my DNA or my system, because it went in my eye and got in my bloodstream and somehow, caused that birth defect. It didn't. But back then, I just wasn't sure. And I thought about it. I thought, oh, God. It made me feel bad. I mean, I felt guilty that I might have caused that. I don't know if I ever told Brenda that or not. Did she ever come in the room? I'm not sure she did. Has anybody seen her? She was going to pop right on, so she must have popped right into something else. Mark says he's still trying to get on, but it might. I don't know. She may have some explaining to do, Lucy. Not that it's serious or important, I guess. Oh, no, Tina. Back then we didn't. I mean, yeah, we did wear them when we painted. We had a guy that painted a lot for us, and he just wouldn't wear one. He's unfortunate. He has, unfortunately. I'm not speaking ill of the dead, but I don't know what killed him, but I think it was cancer. But he worked in that like epoxy paints and stuff that was, really long lasting, good paint for airplanes and different things. But it was not good to breathe when you were spraying it. And he was forever working without a respirator. So we tried to always have a respirator handy for, when we were doing that, or spraying these chemicals. But we didn't always do it when we were just washing our hands with it, because it wasn't aerosolized, I believe is the word. And so we didn't think it was that bad, but I have a feeling it was probably way worse than we knew back then. We also sprayed a lot of a corrosion inhibitor paint that he used to spray on all airplanes. I mean, it was at least aluminum, because it protected it and did things like that. And it was green. And we sprayed that on just tons of stuff. We didn't have respirators. Usually that was a rattle. For us, a lot of times it was a rattle can. They don't allow that to be used anymore. And I knew guys that worked in the military back then that would get up, B-52s, for example, are huge. And a man could literally climb up inside the vertical stabilizer, the tail, and get up in there. Ours were much too small for that. But you could actually get up in there to do maintenance and check things, and they'd have to go up in there and do corrosion control. And I knew a couple of guys that said they practically lived up in those things, spraying that stuff. Whose name will come to me in a minute if Tina doesn't get it to me first. But they don't use that anymore either. I've often wondered that. Now that I figured did burn some brains out because it was later proven to be pretty nasty. You just don't ever know what you're working with. Then I had somebody tell me one time that they discovered that aluminum, like aluminum frying pans and pots and pans and maybe even other cans, beer cans or whatever, that weren't coated on the inside, they were concerned that aluminum was getting into people's bloodstreams and causing Alzheimer's and other brain dementia type issues. And I worked sheet metal a lot of my career, the last half of it. So we did a lot of sanding on sheet metal and working and cutting and grinding down parts to trim. And I probably breathed about a ton of aluminum dust. So I always figured that'd get me too, but so far it hadn't. And I used to work on brakes and things back before they oh man, I can't think of anything today. Not Nomex, fire retardant material that they no longer allow. Knock on wood, yeah. I know I got into that crap when I was a kid because I did brake jobs on trucks, and when I worked, early one of my part-time jobs, that was something I had to do occasionally, blow out the brakes. And God, my God, you just get covered in that brake dust. I'm not going crazy and I'm not losing my mind, guys. I'm just not thinking very clearly today. This will all come to me when we stop talking about it. I'm going to look that one up. I can't stand not knowing or not remembering. Now they use mostly polyurethanes and other epoxies, and some of them are water based, which is probably a really good thing for to protect aircraft. Aluminum's great stuff. It's light, it's strong, but there are some things that just eat the crap out of it. So you got to be careful about corrosion. Boy, people don't even talk about that crap anymore. Yeah, I can't even find it. I'm still here, guys. I'm just trying to find this stuff. I can't even find it. Nobody, it must be so far gone now that people don't even want to talk about it. But airplanes used to be that color and everything was that color. The inside's of the airplane. I can't see the chat, so if somebody else has figured it out, I appreciate it, and I'll look in a minute. Yeah, they use epoxy primers now a lot instead of this stuff. This was a primer, but like I said, oh geez, there's some methylene chloride. I bet that can't be good. That just sounds bad. Well, I hope it'll come to me in a minute. I can't think of it. Nobody's talking about it. Anyway, knock on wood. Yeah, I've been knocking on wood for a long time, Tina. I always kind of worried about that, when I left the airplane business and went on to other things. I figured something in my past life would be what caught up with me. Kind of did. I mean, that's how I hurt my back too, unfortunately, moving equipment around to, move airplanes and stuff. Oh, what is that paint called? I mean, they must, like I said, they don't use it anymore. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it either. I bet you do know, and I don't. Well, I don't even talk. I mean, I can't even pull it up that way. Paint or not the paint? There's people asking about. I'm looking this up, and I see people asking about why they don't paint a lot of airplanes, especially small ones. They don't paint the interior of the aluminum. They leave it bare, and of course, a lot of it is treated with other things when it comes out of the factory. It's usually got some sort of outer coating, but it's not. It's not a problem. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you start painting an airplane, it increases the weight of the airplane, thereby decreases the useful load. And that's why I think it was American Airlines, used to leave a lot of their airplanes. No, not Bondo. They used to leave a lot of their airplanes bare metal that was polished up or somewhat shiny, and they'd paint stripes on it or just paint the words American Airlines or something like that. And one of the reasons they did that was to save weight, because all the paint, I mean, it's hard to imagine like the paint on your car actually having a weight, because it's just this thin layer of color. But if you think about the size of an airplane, you paint that whole thing with some kind of 2-part epoxy acrylic paint or whatever, and you're probably adding a few 100 pounds to all the airplane. Never did sit down and calculate how much that would be per foot or whatever. No, it wasn't those, Kay. Although you may be getting close. Maybe if I put in. It's like a 2-part name. A lot of they still use. Zinc chromate. That's what it was. Zinc chromate. I don't know. Finally found something who's talking about why it was used and why are airplanes green so much. But that's part of the reason why. So it was whatever I just said. Zinc chromate. We used to call it green. Green primer. I mean, we all knew what it was, but we just didn't bother saying it. That's how it gets when you work together with a lot of stuff. I mean, one of the something I guess, and if I had, I may have told this story, but one of my uncles, or maybe 2 of my uncles, gave me my first pocket knives, and I was pretty young, and in fact, so young that I think my mom took both of them away from me at some point. Not obviously, but she hid them, or I never found them again. And I'd always left them on the TV or someplace where I know to pick them up. I've been carrying a knife in my pocket knife. So all my life, that's why I feel so naked if I don't have a knife in my pocket anymore. A lot of country people grew up that way, and a lot of other people, it was common. Unfortunately, these days, if you got anything like that in your pocket, everybody thinks you're, and I will use the term snowflakes there. I mean, everybody thinks you're just some kind of ninja warrior / terrorist or something. That's crazy. I asked Chris once why so many airplanes were painted blue. When I worked out next to the runway, almost all the planes were blue. I have to think about that. I don't know if I ever thought a lot of them were, but some. Now, military used to paint a lot of their airplanes a light blue, especially on the bottom, so the enemy or other. You couldn't see them from below. You know, they would blend into the sky at the same time. They would paint the top. They might camouflage the top, so airplanes, like fighter pilots from above, couldn't see them. You know, flying over the terrain. Oh yeah, I know, Kat. My dad too. I mean, my dad always carried a pocket knife, and his dad, and you know, I didn't. I mean, and we carried them to school because everybody had a pocket knife. You know, it wasn't carried as a weapon; it was a tool, which is still how I look at it. I guess it can be a weapon, but I've never, you know, I don't carry one for that purpose. Well, not usually. I have, but not a pocket knife. I mean, a pocket knife is in your pocket. It's handy. Uh, it is not a screwdriver, and it's not. You have to learn what to do and not do with it. Chuck is never without one, except when we're going to TTA. Yeah, they too. And I went to the airport one day, and I had a favorite little pocket knife. It might have been the one that Brenda's mom gave me when we first got married, and I carried that thing for like 18 years. And I went going through checkout. I mean, I was getting ready to go through security. This was probably 2002 or three, and I had that knife in my pocket. Well, no way in hell was I going to hand that over to a TSA guy to throw it in a trash can and then take it out back where they could go through them and pick out the ones they wanted. So I walked out of the line and went back down to the gift store, and I found out that you could like send something home if you needed to there in the post. So I put that thing in a package and I mailed it home. So it was by God there when I got home. I wasn't going to give it to them to throw in a bucket and then throw in a landfill, or like I said, trade it amongst themselves, because I know a lot of really good pocket knives are probably still walking around in some TSA agent's pocket. I mean, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to throw them in the trash either. I mean, that's just wasteful. But anyway, that wasn't the point. The point was a lot of people my age, at least, used to carry a pocket knife. My girls carry a pocket knife. I gave both of my girls a pocket knife when I was very young, and when they were fairly young, and you know they still have them. They carry them in their purses. They always had to be careful. They had to remind them, don't carry your pocket knife to school, because they were taken away then. But you know, I tried to teach them the same things I was taught. You know, it's a tool. You never know when you might be going to need it. I've told this before, and I don't even know how this would go anymore, but like I said, I always carried pocket knife. And we were actually at Disney World one time, and we were going up and down the moving walkway at the TTA, or, you know, the Transit Authority cars, whatever they call them today, people mover, we called it. And this lady, I think we were going up. Or maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, she had a purse over her shoulder, kind of purse with a fairly narrow leather strap, and somehow or another, she must have been leaning against the side as that thing went down, and a piece of the trim on the top of that strap caught and popped it loose and popped the strap out. So that strap went underneath that piece of aluminum, and she was stuck. And of course, that treadway was running underneath her. And she was and that thing was more or less around her neck, and she was in trouble. So first thing I thought of, and I reached in my pocket, and I headed back up to the walkway. I was going to cut the strap. You know, I figured that was better than, her choking on it before anybody could get to her. And just as I got there, something broke, it popped loose, and she went on down. But I was prepared to cut it, and I always told that's why I carry a pocket knife, because you never know when you might need it for something like that. And I say that sincerely, because I would have cut that strap. I wasn't going to sit there and watch her get hurt or choked or hung on her own purse because somebody couldn't get her loose. And that treadway, she must have been going down, because I remember that belt was running underneath her, and she was having trouble staying on her feet. Yeah, she must have been going down. So maybe I was going up. Anyway. Oh, that's cool, Kay. You know what kind it is? Well, I know I've told that. I was going back to my story about burning something that I got picked up from him, and I still use it to this day. Um, but when my uncle died, that gave me my first pocket knife. When he died, I actually put that knife that I'd carried for almost 20 years in his coffin with him, because, like I told people, he gave me my first, and I was going to give him his last. So, maybe somewhere out he's out there chasing coons somewhere up, or sitting up on a hill listening to his dogs bay at night, and he's up there whittling with my pocket knife. But anyway, what made me think of what I was going with that was when I first started working. You start out as a mechanic. Most people don't have a lot of money, so they don't have the highest quality tools. And back then, there were tools that you could buy that were guaranteed. So in that respect, they were quality. Sears and Roebuck Craftsman wrenches were an example, but they were clunky. They were thick. They were bigger. A really nice made tool like a Snap-on or a Mac tool, they were always thin. They were strong, but you could do more with. I mean, they were just more elegant, and it was sort of I don't want to sound like some kind of snob, but it was a little more professional. I mean, if a guy had a toolbox and it had good tools, that he'd been doing it for a while and he was serious about his work, I guess. So when I went to work in Appalachian, one of the first things I learned from Vernon was what he thought, and I later agreed and thought and told people and passed it on, was an S&K quarter-inch drive ratchet. And it may seem odd, but they're little small ratchets and smaller tools. Airplane mechanics use quarter-inch drive tools probably more than they do bigger stuff, because it's more convenient. You can get into places. I mean, it's just handy. But back then, a lot of the small quarter-inch drive tools, ratchets, were just kind of scaled down versions of their bigger ones. So that the teeth inside the gear were not. They were. You had to turn the ratchet halfway around to get another tooth to get it, so you can get another bite and pull a little bit more. Well, you're not always able to do that. Remember I told you about getting the nuts in the windshield? Well, you needed a ratchet or a tool that you could get up in there and just, you may not be able to move it but a quarter of an inch at a time. Sounds crazy, but it's true. And the best ratchet for that, and it's been copied now by almost everybody, was that S&K ratchet, quarter-inch drive ratchet, because it was to my knowledge, it was the first ratchet that had 42 teeth per inch or whatever on the gears inside. And that was considered a fine-tooth ratchet back then. So you could get up there and just barely turn it, and you get 2 or 3 clicks, and you were able to, tighten up your bolts even in a cramped position. So Vernon told me that, and it just so happened that the guy I was getting some of my tools for back then, the company he could get them for us, for me and his son, that's who they sold S&K. So I got an S&K ratchet, and I still have it today. And they were the finest ratchets. Now, a lot of people now, Sears, Craftsman, no Sears, but Craftsman, certainly Snap-on, those guys, they all make fine-tooth ratchets. And so Vernon and I, we'd be on a job or something, and somebody'd have this really big, nice-looking, polished, shiny, quarter-inch drive Snap-on ratchet. And one of us would pick it up, and we'd hold it up in our hand, we'd hold the drive in and pull the handle, and it would be like clunk, 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 clunk. And we'd make fun of them. So I guess we were ratchet snobs. But I guess if he'd been buried and I'd been there to do it, I'd probably drop one of those in his coffin. I like to send people off with something they can use in the afterlife. Something that they used on maybe like a pocket knife. I mean, they used to bury people with their weapons, and warrior women or warrior men or whoever, got buried with their favorite bow or their favorite sword, or that kind of stuff. So I've always kind of like that idea. Now, buck knives are good knives. They're mostly still made in America. I actually was disappointed a little. I found out Buck, I think until recently, was still making all their stuff in the USA. And usually you pay more for a knife and it's made here. So Buck wasn't really overly priced, but they're good quality. And I looked up one the other day and I thought, well, that's a pretty good looking little knife. Something new. And I got to reading about it and I'll be damned if it wasn't made in China. So there you go. Everything changes, I guess. But they're better knives, as far as I know, are still made here. So that's a good thing. I don't always, I like everybody else, I buy a lot of stuff that comes out of China and Taiwan and other places. Unfortunately, you don't see a lot of stuff out of Japan anymore. And Japan stuff's good quality. They got to be really good. People used to joke when I was a kid, people joked about that, You thought Japanese stuff wasn't worth a darn. And then they slowly but surely got better and better and better. And so a good quality knife or tools or even a car from Japan is pretty upbeat. I'm back. Did Michelle make breakfast? She was waiting on you, Mike. She said she didn't want to start till you got here. Unfortunately, she's in a house full of kids, and the kids all washed through like a wave of locusts and ate it all. So if you didn't bring any donuts back with you, buddy, we're SOL. So anyway, the moral of this whole story, honestly, is don't wait too long. I'm horrible, and I mean horrible, and it's not 99% of the time. It's not intentional about reaching out to people sometimes because we get complacent. Some of my best friends, I have started reaching out more and trying to talk to them more. Vernon passed, and I didn't talk to him, in the last few months. And it's not because I didn't want to. It's just because we get busy and I'd forget and I wouldn't call. And obviously, he wouldn't always take. Sometimes he'd call me too, but and life gets busy and you just forget these things. And I guess you just take them for granted. And don't wait. My dad passed away right in the middle of COVID. And I didn't get to see him and I didn't get to talk to him even in his last few months. And I will regret that, I guess, all my life. I know that my mom was a little different. I wasn't there when she passed, but unfortunately she had no clue who I was anyway. And so in my mind, I think my mom had already passed before she actually died because Alzheimer's is a cruel, cruel beast. And I think I've told that before too. I was staying with her because Dad was in the hospital for a few days with like a respiratory infection long before COVID. Well, a few years before COVID or anything like that. And Mom didn't have anybody to stay with us, so I drove up and stayed with her for a few days, or was going to. And I don't know if it was the first or the second night. She woke up in the middle of the night, which she was prone to do, of course. Another thing that disease does to you. And she had no idea who I was, and she was absolutely scared to death. I felt so bad. My mother thought some bearded man had broken into her house and was going to do her harm, and nothing I could say changed her mind. Up to the point where she finally backed away. She picked up things. She probably would have hit. She would have hit me. My mother was feisty and fiery in that regard, and I'm guarantee you she would have hit me with something if I got too close. But she locked herself in the bedroom, so I finally had to go find, in the middle of the night, find one of the local ladies who helped take care of her, and that she recognized more than she did me, and they got her settled down. But after that, I always thought that was the night I really lost my mom. And I saw her after that, but it wasn't the same. I understand my dad passed during COVID. He was in the hospital when he got it. And I didn't get to see that. It was a bad time. And I'm sorry, but don't give them when anybody tells you about COVID. It was not good. Now, maybe we could have fixed it. Maybe it didn't matter if we shut down or stayed home, but I just have to believe it'd been a lot worse if we hadn't been trying to do something. You know, the Spanish flu, which is actually from here, actually started in America, was killed because they didn't know how to fight it. They didn't know what to do about it. And we know, COVID came along and we quarantined everybody, and that sucked, and it was rough on the economy, it was rough on the country, it was rough on the whole world. But who knows, maybe there'd been millions more would have died if we hadn't. I know some people got it, didn't bother them a bit. They were sick for a few days, got back up, and went right back to business. But there was a hell of a lot of people that didn't get that good. And again, I apologize for my language, but yeah, I don't know, Tina. That's a funny thing because I always assume it came out of, it seemed to come back from Europe at the end of World War One. So I always assumed it came from over there, but it didn't. It started in America. That's when troops that we sent to fight the war in Europe were actually the ones that spread it and then brought it back here again on a much larger scale. And it was bad. So I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe we didn't want to take credit for it. Maybe we didn't want people to know it really started in Kansas or someplace. I think everyone tried their best. We just didn't know. No, we didn't know. People didn't know. I don't care what anybody said. Even the ones that knew didn't know because we never had anything quite like it. Anyway, I'm not going. That can get political and it can go all different ways. So I'm not. It could have been a variant, Tina. You're right. It could very well have been a variant. It might have just once it got over there and got into thousands of more hosts, if you will. I'm sure it probably did, just like COVID. I mean, it morphed into other variations, and some of them were worse, some of them weren't as bad. Which is lucky because most viruses don't get less resistant. They tend to get more resistant. So in some ways, I guess we were lucky about that on some of the COVID stuff. Some of the variants weren't quite as bad. Let's see something here real quick. I'll take this slide down in a moment. Quit sharing it. There's no need to have it up there. But I wanted to see if I had something else I wanted to show real quick. Well, I'll show this. If you hadn't hit the like button, guys, or the unlike button, please do so. It helps. Subscribe to the channel if you have any. I know today's topic's been kind of random and it's not fun and happy and lighthearted, but it's still important. Next week we'll be back on track and we'll get to talk about, more like to us, at least me, Mark, more exciting and lighthearted things for the most part. Serious, but still lighthearted in its own way. And, last time I looked yesterday, I believe, and last week's show, I think I had more people watched it than any other one I've done so far. I got to go back and look at that, but I'm pretty sure the numbers were right. And it could be because I put a lot of effort into tags and links and whatever they call it. So people could, look up Stanley Petersay's Safari search, just things like that. So I think maybe that helped. But I actually got more. Seems to have got more views on that than anything else. So I guess some people are interested. I was going to show you guys a picture real quick, and then we'll talk about it next week. But I don't know if you know who these two guys are. Well, you know who at least one of them is, but keep these in mind because these two mammals are very closely related, believe it or not. Did that slide even come up? Why is it not? Why is that slide not? Oh, I guess I know why. Crap. I'm going to have to do it this way. Whoops, I went past it. Those two guys. these two guys, this little furry guy right here, and this big old grave mother right here, are very closely related. We'll talk about that next week. So for now, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. You just get to look at my ugly puss for a little while longer. And I don't know how much longer we'll stay. But I'm here to chat. And I don't know if Chris is still around. He's probably not. I've probably talked to Chris more this week than I have in ages. And it's all mostly been about airplanes, which is something we obviously have in common. Okay, which trick? Which trick are you talking about? Okay, Michelle, you have a good weekend, and I think you're going to be there a couple of weeks, so enjoy your visit. I'm pretty sure you're with family, so and if you got the kids there, if the kids are with you, tell them we said hi, and I hope everybody's doing well. And, hope to see you again soon. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. I do. Come back next week. We'll be talking about Africa again. Might be the last Africa show you ever get to see on my channel. Well, maybe not forever, but at least for now. I think Mark and I finally have covered the whole thing, if that's possible. And if it's not your birthday, Michelle, happy birthday to whoever it is. But if your birthday, hugs all around and happy birthday. Have fun and enjoy. Eat some birthday cake for Mike. Ooh, Mike, that'd be good too. Why don't you go get us a birthday cake? I particularly like whipped icing. Some places use, see if you can get that. And I don't care about roses. You might put something else on there. Put a football or airplanes or, anything like that. See, I knew you'd be looking for some. Save me some birthday cake. Look at him. Never going to pass up a chance. Hey, Dean, welcome back. Unless you've been here the whole time. Yeah, well, some people are having birthday cake. Michelle's in Colorado, on vacation or visiting family, and they're having a birthday party right this afternoon. Oh, my goodness. No wonder I can't talk. I've sat here and talked for 2 hours all by myself. Dang, this is when I really miss Mark, because he can take up a lot of talking space. Just came back eating cheese. Oh boy, I'd like to have some cheese right now myself. Well, if Mike gets there first, there won't be no saving some. We know that, Tina, because how often have you known Mike to save us a donut? Don't happen. But now, if one of us can get there first, or if Michelle can hide us some, maybe we'll have enough to share and go around. Speaking of that, where in the heck did my wife get to? You know what? I'll bet you $100 that she fell asleep. She was tired last night. She didn't sleep good, I don't think. What else is new? Does anybody? Mike says, I don't share cake or donuts. We've noticed that, Mike. We've noticed that. You ever get down here on your Harley or your Airstream, I'll share donuts and cake with you. Just so you know. That's how us country people are. We share up to a point. So I'm reflective bear today. I guess you figured that out maybe, or maybe you guys don't even pay attention to it anymore. But, I still try to change my name every week. Have a different one that's somewhat relevant. And I guess I've been doing a lot of thinking and reflecting lately. So I like the geese stamp. Oh, yeah, I got that kind of accidentally. The girls had an auction and there were several little metal signs, and I don't usually buy them. But they had 2 or 3, and this was one of them. I thought, man, I'm going to get that. And I got it for a little bit of nothing in the auction. So I really like it. I'm going to put it up on the wall somewhere right now. It's just kind of hanging there. But those are really neat birds. I mean, those are duck stamps and waterfowl stamps, whatever you want to call them, are usually extremely artistic. I don't know if you can see the whole thing or not. But these are redheads, what they call redheads. And that's a magnet, which you don't need to see. Don't matter. But back when this one was done in '88, the stamp was $10. I'm not sure how much it is now. It's not a whole lot more than that, but it is more. At least I'm pretty sure it is. I've never bought a waterfowl stamp. I probably should be ashamed of that, because virtually all that money for waterfowl stamps goes right back into conservation. Just so people know, hunters aren't all terrible people, and we've actually spent a lot of money to help conserve and bring animals back. And it's not just so we can kill them. I've heard people accuse me of that, but it's because we can't imagine life without some of these things. Nobody gets to see a passenger pigeon anymore, never will again, because we didn't start soon enough. So we know better now, so every dollar helps. I used to try to talk people into buying a hunting license or a fishing license, even if they didn't go hunting or fishing, because the money all went into conservation. What are we talking about? Mike doesn't like turkey legs. You don't like smoked turkey legs like at Disney, Mike? Dean and I might have to ask you to leave. Of course, that is more. Now, I'll take that back. That is more turkey for Dean. I didn't think of that. Do they taste good? Well, heck yes, they taste good. They're really good. I'm going to give you a big hug someday, Dinah. It's okay if you think less of it. Poor Mike. No, I don't like them. I tried one, did not. What didn't you like about it? Just out of curiosity. Now, I admit turkey legs have got some nasty tendons in them. That's not my favorite part of the turkey leg, but the meat, just pick it out of that. And once you get down to that point, and it's just, how can anybody not like smoked turkey legs or smoked ham? Or no, Diana, it leaves more for me. I'm absolutely fine with it. Yeah, that's a good point, Dean. We've seen Mike devour and decimate donut populations, and now we know he likes birthday cake. So I guess if he don't like turkey legs, that probably a good chance that leaves more for the rest of us. Oh, me. You guys are a mess. I love y'all. And I really appreciate you being here and sticking through it with me and my less than manly qualities, I suppose. I try so hard not to get all choked up, and most of the time I don't, but every once in a while it just hits like a big old, I don't know whether to be ashamed of this or not. I'm not. I love my mother, regardless. But I didn't cry when she passed away. But every once in a while now I think about her and things we did, and I can hear her voice in my head, and it brings a tear to my eye. And I just, truth of the matter is, Brenda would probably tell you if she was here that I'm a big softy. I can't watch it. I don't like to watch movies because they make me cry. So there, I said it out loud. I get too emotional. I get too caught up in the emotions. And sometimes I just don't like to do that. Well, you guys are eating. What's he saying that? You're a better person than I am. You're a good person. I'm pretty sure I am. Mike says, well, you guys are eating all the turkey legs. I'll slide over and eat all the birthday cake. Yeah, I'm afraid we'd have to lock the birthday cake up while we eat turkey legs. Dean says, yes, I'm a mess, but that's how I am. That's how I come, and that's what everyone likes about me. That's true. Good point, Dean. I mean, you got everybody, if you look hard enough, everybody's good at something. And sometimes a lot of things, but if being a mess is the best thing you can do, and you do a good job of it, well, by God, that's good for you. As a teacher once told me, I've never forgotten this either. He told me one time in high school, he said, I don't care if you grow up to be a floor sweeper. He said, try to be the best dang floor sweeper anybody's ever seen. He said, just go at this, do the best job you can always do and no regrets. And that's kind of how I've attacked life. Tim, I think showing emotions is the best quality man can have. Well, maybe that's true, but sometimes I get too emotionally involved in things. I mean, my eyes are all welled up right now, and I just can't help it. And Brenda will tell you, she catches me, which is, I want to smack her sometimes. She'll look over and say, "Are you crying?" We'll be watching the movie or something. She said, "Are you crying?" And I'll finally, I'll admit it. I told her one time, "Heck yes, I'm crying." And I'm not. That's why I don't like to watch a lot of movies. A lot of movies they get to me, I guess. Because deep down inside, I'm an emotional, softy kind of guy. I guess I've always been that way. And I'm being distracted again. Have a great day, guys. Well, you have a good day too, Dean. And hope to see you on around on the Instagram or the Facebook or YouTube soon again. And have a great weekend, Dean. Whatever you're doing. Which goes to everybody. I always thought it was wrong to say he's getting in touch with his feminine side because a man is crying. It's not feminine, it's human. That's a good point, Tina. Well said. Yeah, I grew up, Tina, Chuck, and maybe more, but, we grew up in the back edge of a time when people didn't think that. You weren't a man if you cried or showed emotions, You know what, Mike? When we get through here today, if you're at home and you have time, you're welcome to call me. I'll get something running here. I'll get the Instagram on my phone or something working. We'll talk for a few minutes. I would like to do that. I used to honestly try not to show emotions, not because I didn't want to be considered a wuss or too soft or whatever, but because I read so much books, and I always looked up to Native American philosophy. I still do, and how they looked at things, and that was the trait of most Native American men. They didn't, and probably women too, for that matter, unless someone died or was killed. But they didn't show emotions a lot. They kept their faces calm, and that the reason was they didn't want to show the enemy weakness, or it wasn't necessarily that they didn't feel anything. And so for years I was like that too. I still am to some degree. I try not to express too many emotions because I learn to surprise somebody. But I used to on a school bus for a while going to high school before I started riding motorcycles to school or driving. And this one bus driver, she after I've been riding her bus for a year or so, she started calling me Smiley. And it wasn't because I smiled; it's because I never did smile. And she used to just laugh at me and and she wasn't making fun of me. She was very nice. We cut up. Everybody did, but she called me Smiley. Sissy is what? Yeah, that's exactly right, Tina. We were sissies. And to be a sissy meant many things, but none of them good, especially then. And sissies got picked on. I mean, I've talked about this too. One of the only real fights I ever had in my life was with a guy about twice my size. And the reason I finally stood up to him was because he bullied everybody. And there were some young kids in our troop and the scouts that were maybe not as rough and tough as some of us thought we ought to be. I don't want to call him a sissy, but he was back then. That's what they called him. And these guys were constantly bullying him and a couple others. And I finally got tired of it, and I stood up to him. I said, "You guys got to stop this crap." it's not why we're here. And if you don't think you can, then let's settle it now, because I ain't gonna back down, and I want you to stop. So I stood up to the guy. We had a fight. I don't guess either one of us really won. But later on in life, he told me he said, you're one of the first people that ever did that actually stood up and, backed me down. He said, I have to give you credit for that. Can't wait one day to own a motorcycle, go for a cruise with the wife on the back. There you go, Mike. She might want to get one of her own. This brings back memories from high school. There's a disfortunate guy being picked on in the school cafeteria. I stood up to the guys that were bullying him. Well, Mike, that does not surprise me. Mike, the wife will be sitting on her lawn chair in front of her. Somehow I have that vision in my mind already. Now, a guy come by here yesterday, Mike, wanted to talk about something on our property that he wanted to buy. Or maybe he was hoping I'd give it to him, but I wasn't going to. But he's selling the camper. He said, if he sells that camper, he'd be able to, he'd buy it. I'll check, see if it's an Airstream, let you know, buddy. If you're still looking. And I told him if they want to mess with somebody, mess with me. So I picked up the cafeteria table. Oh my God, Mike. He threw it. Oh, I love you, man. You're just the best. Oh God, and that doesn't surprise me. Hell, you stood up to two thieves in a store since I've known you. So to the table. That's hilarious. I was done for the semester. Oh, does that mean you got kicked out of school for the semester, or it was the end of the school year? I learned in school that the reason women lived longer was that we released our emotions. I'm sure it has been proven wrong, but it stuck with me. I'm not sure it's entirely wrong. I mean, that may not be it in a nutshell, but pent up anxiety and all that stuff doesn't do anybody any good over time. And I'm a good example of that, because I'm trying to hold stuff in for a long time, and all it does is make you sick from worry, and have headaches and all kinds of other things, and it probably is better to release. Maybe it's not scientific, but I'd be willing to bet that's the truth. That was true too. Okay, I mean, women did used to live longer than men. It's not until recent years that women have they've realized that women have a lot of their own problems and don't necessarily live even as long as men in some cases. But I think it's much more, if they really look at the numbers, it's much more even than they used to think. Oh, anxiety's terrible. I guess not anxiety, but hell, maybe it is. But I worry about things. I let things ride. I let things eat at me sometimes because I don't want to say anything or don't want to talk about it. All it does is makes you a wreck. I don't know how else to explain it, but I'm sure somebody in here can give me some better words. Oh, mercy, mercy. Anybody else got anything else they'd like to talk about for the next few minutes, and we'll get off here. I probably ought to get off before my clock dings again, but even that's not entirely accurate because it's dinging about 3 minutes fast. I don't know why either. I think the clock knows what time it is, but the minute hand is just off, I believe. Oh, stress is terrible. There's a few people that know this. I'm not really hidden it since, but one of the biggest reasons I got out of the aviation business was stress. I mean, it had just gotten so stressful for me personally, and some of it was ridiculous, and I guess some of it was real, but a lot of it had to do with the work we were doing, and always wanting to, it make sure everything was always perfect. I mean, I really promote the bus, and I really pride myself with, either not making mistakes or catching them before they were a problem. And to this day, I still ask people to, if I do something, I ask Brenda or somebody to look at it, make sure they don't see anything wrong with it. I haven't forgotten anything. I think a lot of people, when I went back to work after I got my degrees, a lot of people either would get aggravated with me or didn't understand why, but I would do that. We'd do something. I said, take a look at that, make sure I didn't forget anything. And a lot of people didn't get that. It came from my airplane days. And we always had somebody, look behind us. And that wasn't a sign that we weren't any good as mechanics. In fact, I always thought it made us better mechanics because, we did the same for them and a lot of times. And, that was how you keep from making mistakes. But over time, I guess the test flights and the conditions we were working under as far as company and the stress that was involved in that, and all of us not sure where if we had a job. And that was before they shut us down. I mean, we were already worried about it. And even though they told us they weren't going to, they told me 2 weeks before, 5 days before they shut down and let everybody go that, oh no, there's nothing going on. Go have your vacation, have a good time. We'll see when you get back. Why, SOBs. Okay, you leaving, Mike? Tell you what, if you got free time, let me know, and we'll talk here in a few minutes. I'll sign off and try to clear my throat a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit if you want to. You can call me or I'll call you. Let me call you because I seem to miss your calls. Anybody know how to do that? I mean, Mike and I talk sometimes on Instagram, do a phone message. And he calls me, but I never hear the phone ring or anything. I never hear an alert. But if I call him, on my end at least, I hear a phone ringing. Just like an old-fashioned phone ringing. And I don't know what he hears, but I don't ever, that's why I miss so many. I'll be sitting here doing something else and I don't see it or I don't hear it. And, anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to shut up. Phone me once you get off. We'll talk for a couple minutes. Yeah, okay. We'll do that. I appreciate everybody hanging with me today. Come back next week. We'll finish up our trip to Africa, hopefully. Mark sent me a last message that he was still trying to get on, but he ain't going to make it. Once they lose their internet, it's usually off for a few hours. And I thank everybody for listening to my story and seeing me get emotional and cry here in front of the camera and, be that kind of guy. But that's who I am, so there. But everybody have a great weekend. If Chris, if you go back and hear this, or Kay, if you see him online or anything, anybody, tell him I appreciate him coming by and I hope he gets to finish up a great week at Oshkosh. I wish I was up there with him. So maybe one of these days I'll get there before I die. That's definitely on my bucket list. Oh, Tina, I guess I'll say I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, but I do appreciate I appreciate that. And you telling me. And you're going to have me crying here again, so I better go. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Love y'all. See you again next week. We'll be back. We'll go to Africa probably for the last time for a while. And it'll be fun. I guarantee we'll have a great time. Anyway, so long. See you next week. As I used to say on TV, I'll come back now here.